Hello kids, we welcome you to our KIDSLAND family. We have decided to visit you 2 days a week from today. Every Thursday and Sunday we bring you a Bible study.
Today we are talking about Jacob and ESAU. Let's listen to a description of Jacob and ESAU from our teacher.
Yes, Joanna, we talked about Isaac and Rebekah last week. Isaac is Abraham's son. We also talked about Abraham. Today we are talking about Jacob and ESAU. Jacob and ESAU are twins born to Isaac and Rebekah. Even though they are twins, they are completely different. Now let's learn about Jacob and ESAU. Before starting today's lesson, we remind you that if you haven't subscribed to our channel yet, subscribe now. Then as soon as we post a video, you can watch it. Jacob, a prince of God. Jacob and ESAU were the twin sons of Isaac and Rebekah. They did not look alike as twins often do, and they were very unlike in all their ways. As they grew up, ESAU loved the forests and wild places. He made bows and arrows, and was a hunter, and brought home wild birds and deer, for his father was very fond of such food. Jacob helped his father with the flocks, and learned how to cook food from his mother, who loved him more than she loved ESAU. One day ESAU came home from hunting tired and hungry, and smelled the delicious soup of red lentils that Jacob was making. He begged Jacob to give him some, and Jacob, who wanted to be eldest, and have the right to the blessing that fathers gave to the firstborn in those days, said, "Sell me this day thy birthright." And ESAU gave him all his rights as the firstborn, for a little food which he might have had as a free gift. Jacob wanted to be counted in the great promise that God had given to Abraham, but ESAU despised it. Afterward, when Isaac was old and his eyes were dim, he called ESAU, and asked him to go out into the fields and shoot a deer, and cook the venison that he loved, so that he might eat it and bless his firstborn before he died. Rebekah heard it, and told Jacob to bring kids from the flock, which she cooked and served as venison. Then she dressed Jacob in the clothes of ESAU, and told him to say that it was ESAU who had brought the venison. Isaac said, "The voice is the voice of Jacob," but he put his hands on him, and believed it was ESAU, and blessed him. When ESAU came home and brought venison to his father, Isaac said, "Who art thou?" And when ESAU said, "I am thy son, thy firstborn," ESAU, the old man, trembled, and told ESAU the blessing had been given to another. Poor ESAU cried out with grief, "Hast thou but one blessing? Bless me, even me also, O my father." And so Isaac blessed him, but he could not call back the blessing of the firstborn. The Lord knew that Jacob would grow to be a good man, and love the things of God best, and that ESAU would always love the things of this world best. Yet it was wrong of Jacob and Rebekah to deceive, for we may not do evil that good may come. Isaac blessing Jacob. Isaac blessing Jacob. After this ESAU hated his brother, and said he would kill him. So Isaac called Jacob, and, blessing him again, sent him away into Syria to the house of Laban, where Rebekah had lived, and where Abraham's servant went to find her for his master's son. One night, when he was not far on his way, he lay down to sleep, with a stone for his pillow, on a hillside that looked toward his home, and he dreamed a wonderful dream. He saw a ladder reaching from earth to heaven, and a vision of angels who were going up and down upon it. Above it stood the Lord, who spoke to Jacob, and gave to him the promise that he had first given to Abraham, and told him that he would go with him, and bring him again into his own land. Jacob was afraid when he woke, for he had seen the heavens opened, and had heard God's voice. He made an altar of the pillow of stone, and called it Bethel, the house of God. And then he vowed that the Lord should be his God, and he added, "Of all that thou shalt give me, I will surely give a tenth unto thee." When Jacob came to Haran, he saw the well from which his mother used to draw water. There were 3 flocks of sheep lying by it, waiting for all the flocks to gather in the cool of the day to be watered. Soon Rachel, the daughter of Laban, came leading her father's flocks, and one of the shepherds told Jacob whose daughter she was. So Jacob rolled the stone from the well, and watered the flocks of Laban, his mother's brother. Then he kissed Rachel, and told her that he was Rebekah's son, and she ran and told her father. There was great joy in Laban's house because Jacob had come, and after he had stayed a month with them, Laban asked him to stay and take care of his flocks, and he would pay him for his work. Since the day he had seen Rachel leading her father's flocks, he had chosen her in his heart to be his wife. So he said that he would work for Laban 7 years, if at the end of that time he would give him Rachel for his wife. Laban was quite willing to do so, and the 7 years seemed to Jacob but a few days, for the love he had to Rachel. But, according to the custom of that country, the younger daughter could not be given in marriage before the elder, and so Laban gave his daughter Leah also, and both Leah and Rachel became the wives of Jacob. For Jacob lived in that faraway time and country of the early world when men were allowed to take more than one wife, and when each man was both king and priest over his family and tribe, and worshipped God by offering burnt sacrifices upon an altar. After 20 years of work with Laban, in which he had earned many flocks and herds for himself, Jacob took his wives and the little sons God had sent him, and his flocks and herds, and started on a journey to his old home. Isaac was still alive, and Jacob longed to see him. He had lived long in Haran for fear of his brother ESAU, and now he must travel through Edom, ESAU's country, on his way to his old home. As he was on his way, some of God's angels met him, and he was strengthened. Still he feared Esau, and sent some of his men to tell his brother that he was coming. The men came back, saying that Esau, with 400 men, was coming to meet them. Poor Jacob! He remembered the sin of his youth when he had stolen the blessing from Esau, and he was afraid, and prayed God to protect him. He sent his servants again to meet Esau with great presents of flocks, and herds, and camels, and after placing his wives and little ones in the safest place, he sent all that he had over the brook Jabbok, and he stayed on the other side to pray. It was as if he wrestled with a man all night, and when the day began to break, the man wished to go. But Jacob said, I will not let thee go except thou bless me. So the man blessed him there, and called his name Israel, for as a prince, he said, Haste thou power with God and with men, and haste prevailed. Then Jacob knew that the Lord himself, in the form of a man, had been with him, and he had seen him face to face. And as the sun rose, he passed over the brook. When he looked up, he saw Esau and his men coming, and when he had told his family to follow him, he went straight before them, for he was no longer afraid to meet his brother. Jacob's prayer had been answered, and Esau ran to meet his brother, and throwing his arms around him, wept on his shoulder. Then they talked in a loving and brotherly way, and Esau returned to his home with the presents Jacob had given him. And Jacob went on his way into Canaan full of joy and thankfulness. He stopped a little while in a pleasant place to rest his flocks and cattle, but he longed to see the place where he first saw the angels of God, and heard the voice of the Lord blessing him. So they journeyed on to Bethel, and there built an altar and worshipped God. Meeting of Jacob and Esau. Meeting of Jacob and Esau. Again the Lord spoke to Jacob at Bethel, and called him Israel, and blessed him. After they left Bethel, they came near to Bethlehem, where many hundred years afterward the Lord Jesus was born. And there another little son was born to Rachel, and there two God sent for her, and took her to himself, and there her grave was made. Jacob and Rachel. The little boy was named Benjamin, and was the youngest of Jacob's 12 sons, who became the fathers of the 12 tribes of Israel, and the princes of a great nation. Jacob and Rachel. Jacob was almost home. His great family, with all the flocks and herds, had been long on the way, for they often spread their tents by the brooks in the green valleys, that the cattle might rest and find pasture. But at last the long caravan came slowly over the fields of Mamre to Hebron, and Isaac, whom the Lord had kept alive to see his son once more, was there in his tent waiting for him. But soon after this he died, 180 years old, and Esau came, and the two brothers laid their father in the cave that Abraham bought when Sarah died, and where he had buried Rebekah, and Jacob became patriarch in place of his father.
So kids, today we talked about Jacob and Esau. We will say goodbye for today until we bring you a Bible lesson next Sunday.
If you are not connected to our website, connect to our website today and become a member of our KIDSLAND family. Also subscribe to our YouTube channel.
This is our KIDSLAND family.